Hey, what's going on, guys? So, I was just going to go over a few things that I've seen throughout the past few days in some training programs across social media that just, what are telltale signs that people don't know what they're doing? Not necessarily always from the athlete, but from uh, the performance center you could be going to, from various coaches. It's really hard to um, vet good coaches from bad coaches, especially when you've never been in this field at a deep level. Um, for me, it's easy to see through the bullshit and to see who sucks, because I know what to look for. But I'll give you a few things that I've seen this week that are just amusing. And honestly, for the clients, for the athletes, it sucks that they don't know any better, because they are wasting their time, they are wasting their money, and then it kind of creates this vicious cycle of people believing that because this athlete does this program or this athlete does this exercise, that it must be effective, that it must be good. So then it just perpetuates the belief, and then uh, it gets indoctrinated or furthers the BS that this person is good, right? So what are those things? So I'll get right to them. People who make things unnecessarily complex are oftentimes it's a telltale sign they don't know what the hell they're doing. Great example: saw somebody having their athlete stand on one leg, use a band plus something else to do a very fundamental movement. And what that person should be doing is they should be doing just a simple hip hinge, just an RDL or a barbell deadlift. It doesn't need to be something complex, because this athlete is not at that level to require the complexity. So how do you know when is that complexity necessary, or is it necessary? Well, the complexity becomes necessary as the athlete hits certain benchmarks throughout their training, as they've been around for a while. So for example, if you look at an athlete who's been training for 15 to 20 years, and they've exhausted all good basic fundamentals, hey, it wouldn't make sense for them to get in to put more weight on the bar at this point, because now they could be risking injury. How do we tap into a new level or new dimension with them? Maybe they need a certain level of complexity. Case in point, like you look at West Side Barbell guys, and you look at what they do. These are guys, the very, very elite powerlifters who have exhausted everything at this point. So now they're looking for new nuance on how many variations can they possibly have when it comes to a bench press. So that's why you'll see these guys do bands and chains. They'll use a different bar, different grip with a certain bar. They'll do anything. But here's the kicker: is they don't get too far removed from doing those basic patterns, but they do still try to figure out nuance, because they've earned it. They've trained long enough for it to make sense. So just something to look at. Another thing that you can also look at is when you're watching a progression of an athlete train. There are the fundamental movements, the fundamental patterns they should be doing. There should be a general framework from which they're working off of, but also their program or their template or whatever the coach is having them do, that should evolve and that should change over time. So should the general template or framework stay the same? Potentially. It kind of depends on the situation, depends on injury history, biological age, training history. It depends on a number of factors, but what we need to look at here is, has this athlete been doing the exact same thing for the past 4 to 5 to 6 years? And there's been no change in set rep scheme. There's been no change in load. There's been no change. Like, these are things to look at, to think about. So that's usually a tell that somebody doesn't know what they're doing, right? And the final piece that somebody doesn't know what they're doing is, I saw this twice this week, is stupid amounts of volume. More does not mean better. More does not mean more effective. At some point, you need to do more. Yes, almost always. You need to do more to a certain level. And then it becomes a game of like, okay, now we need to probably back things down, back off, not do as much. But a lot of people are under this impression of like more, always and forever. And it's not necessary. In fact, if you're doing more all the time, you're always doing more sets, more reps, whatever, now you're tapping into the body's ability to recover. So you're robbing your body's recovery resources to satisfy what? To do what? To let your ego get in the way and say you've done, hey, look at how much volume I've done. Cool. That amount of volume that you've done today wrecked you for the next 3 to 5 to 7 days or whatever the case may be. So now you're missing potential training sessions. And even if you do go in and do some training sessions, they're not going to be done at a high level. So now it gets into a quality or a quality control problem. So those are things to think about. Like, how complex do I really need the exercise to be? Do I need the session to be? Have I earned the level of complexity? In most cases, a lot of people can just benefit from doing the basics better and continuing to put more load on the bar. How much volume is necessary? And finally, is the program evolving in any capacity or changing with me over time as I continue to grow and evolve as an athlete? These are just considerations, things to think about. But this is just some of the way that you can tell if people are full of it. So have a look around as you're scrolling. Look on social media what some of these folks are doing, and then you'll start to notice some of this stuff. So anyway, if you have questions about it, training at all, or whatever else that's involved in performance, please reach out to me. You can leave a comment or whatever, but you can also email me, travis@dhpcoaching.net, and be sure to check out dynamichp.net for more. Have a good night.